Hello, and welcome to episode 21 of the Pos-cast with Rabbi Shmuel Posner and myself, Seth Hellman. Rabbi, we had a little bit of technical difficulties. See, the rabbi has an old Windows computer and has chosen to not update said computer, not turn off, probably both update or turn off the computer for the last, in his own words, 3 years. And so when his computer froze today, it turned off and needed to do updates. So it was trying to update a system that hadn't been updated in 3 years to current version. So we were supposed to start 40 minutes ago, and now we're starting.
Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, I don't know for sure if it was three years or not. That was just, I have no idea how the computer works. But what actually happened was, I tried to turn it off and turn it on again, and it wasn't really working. So what I did was I pulled the plug on it. I think that got the computer very upset. And when I plugged it back in, it wasn't happening so fast. So of course we immediately related this to Rosh Hashanah, because in a sense what happens is, this is fascinating. According to Kabbalah, what happens is the night of Rosh Hashanah, when Rosh Hashanah comes in, until the blowing of the shofar, there's like Hashem sort of recedes from the world. Like he's saying, I don't know if I want to have this world or not. Now I say this world, I mean all of creation. And then when the Jews blow the shofar in the morning, then that renews Hashem's desire for the world and gets re-energized. Now of course there's got to be some kind of reserve energy that keeps the world going. That's already explained. There's external, internal, whatever. But the most internal drive of the world has to be renewed every year, and that's what happens on Rosh Hashanah. Now, of course, this year, Rosh Hashanah comes out on Shabbos, so we don't blow the shofar on Shabbos, and so that's a whole nother understanding, because the simple reason is we're afraid that someone's going to carry a shofar to an expert to teach them how to do it. And so they'll transgress a prohibition of carrying from a public domain to a private domain to a public domain, or carrying it in the street for cubits, whatever the specific carrying prohibition is. And Chassidus goes wild on that. So what do you mean? Because we're afraid of some Yozel who's going to carry the shofar. Nobody shows the shofar. So a whole year, every other year, we tell people, you got to hear the shofar. It's amazing. The whole mitzvah of the day is the shofar, the shofar, the shofar. Comes Shabbos. No shofar. No shofar. No shofar. So it explains that Shabbos has that extra power when it comes out on Rosh Hashanah to reinfuse the world with what it needs without the blowing of the shofar itself. So that's a pretty fascinating idea. But the whole point over here is that the world does get unplugged and has to be replugged in. And that happens through what we do. Now, while we're on the subject of the shofar, Chani and I are working really hard to get ready for Rosh Hashanah, right? You got to buy food, you got to cook it, you got to this, you got to that. I'm out there on campus every day, meeting kids and trying to be nice to them and trying to get them to sign up.
Emphasis on trying.
I thought I'd get that past you. I'm trying to get kids sign up, and consistently, and people, or people signing up. They're coming the first night, Rosh Hashanah dinner. It's just Rosh Hashanah dinner is like, I don't know. It's like it's important. It's valuable. It's celebrating Rosh Hashanah. But if you're not going to come to shul the next day, if you're not going to come Sunday, so all the shluchim, right, on campus are like twisting themselves into pretzels. How do we get kids to come on Sunday? They know the first night. The first night they'll come. What do you call it? The brisket, dinner, blah, 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 right? So that's not a problem. How do you get them? They say, okay, come tomorrow, like normally, come tomorrow, you hear a shofar. Now I got to tell them, come on Sunday. Now the attention span and the memory of a student is that big. So they're gonna come back on Sunday. So now we gotta throw them some kind of brisket, roast beef, pastrami, bologna, whatever it is. Get them to come back Sunday for 10 minutes. Just show up for 10 minutes, hear the shofar. That's all we're trying to do. So it's a little, it's in some ways, it's frustrating. because the amount of ignorance out there is appalling. Like, there's a lack of understanding of what Rosh Hashanah really is. Like a lot of things. And that's really our job is to educate. It's not a question of convincing anybody of anything. Just educating people what is Rosh Hashanah really all about.
Well, I think that, there are two things with this. First off, the shulchan get frustrated, but what is your solution? You walk around on campus on Sunday with a shofar and you blow your shofar for people. So it's not like you're just sitting around all frustrated because there are people that aren't coming.
Right. No, I was suggesting that the frustration changes our mode of behavior at all. Right. Just the opposite. It gets even more. But in my head, it's like, I'm talking to the person, I'm being nice to them, and like, oh, that's great, it's wonderful, da da da. Like, and I want to say, dude, do you have any? And I don't say it because they don't know. I understand the problem. The problem is they don't know. They don't know that, the first night is wonderful and good to celebrate. It is important to celebrate Rosh Hashanah. It's a yontif. It's fine. It's great. Shabbos. It's great. It's wonderful. But then, like, what don't you get here? Anyway, that's just.
I mean, the other thing too is that, like, and granted, this is my own experience, so it doesn't necessarily draw to other people, but growing up, we would always go and miss school for the first day of Rosh Hashanah, but we would never skip school for the second day. My parents might take off work for both days, but we wouldn't miss 2 days of school in a row. And so I think that was I was not the only kid that was doing that, who would only show up for one day and then they'd go to school the second day. And I think that there's a lot of people that, with the holidays where it turns into a 2-day thing on the front end or the back end of it. Less so, I think, with Pesach, but very much so with Rosh Hashanah. They view the second day as not as important.
Right. I mean, we know, halachically speaking, that would be true. It's not. If someone said to you, "I'm going to do one day," you would say to him, "Keep the first day," and that's by every yontif you'd say that. But but especially this year, you have the shofar experience at least. You hope people will come. The other thing that's going on here is a transition. You graduated. Did you notice that you graduated?
Yeah, I did notice that I graduated. It feels very odd to not be in the Chabad house for Rosh Hashanah.
Great. Well, I already told you can come back. It's fine.
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to New Hampshire for Rosh Hashanah, but I might be in town for Yom Kippur, so we'll talk more after the podcast. For
that. We'll figure out your life later. Anyway, but the idea is, so I was talking, it's like the first, second Shabbos, and who's there and who's not there, and so we name drop here. So Zev is like all, to Drudel, where's Yonah Baruch? And I'm like, okay, enough of that.
Graduated.
I know, but in his mind, like there's an essential part of the Chabad is missing. And so I started thinking about how I deal with it. And basically what I do is I put all the recent alumni from last year, put them into a black hole. I don't think about it. I don't think like, oh, if we're so and so. I try to focus on the people that are in front of me. And try that, because that's the reality now. Like we were tabling yesterday on the Marsh Plaza, and so who was there? Well, Zev was there. He's there, and then Jake, our new president, was there. So I'm looking at the new people. Who's going to be here? Nothing. Oh, I wish so and so. What. And I think that's an important transition. Forget about what happened last year. Focus on what's here right now, and then the third phase is to be able to go back and actually. How you doing with the alumni? What's going on? All that kind of stuff. I think that's the three part that work with our alumni.
You've only partially thrown us into a black hole though, because I'm still getting the emails inviting me to the class on Wednesdays. So
yes, that's you can go to class anywhere on Wednesday, but yeah, we got to start moving people onto the alumni lab. Whatever, we'll take care of that sometime. But.
Let's talk about this. Since you did mention that there's been the transition and the people who graduated and stuff, obviously the school year started. So how was the first Shabbos at the Chabad house?
It was nice. We had new people. There's Hashem keeps us busy. A couple of people interested in getting involved, and I told that story. You read the story of the tefillin from Jerusalem. There is an addendum to that. And I was telling this to you'll see who I was telling you to. So what happened was, now he's getting a pair of tefillin. That was the whole point, to get him a pair of tefillin. So, we got Chabad on campus is graciously sponsoring, half of it. So he says, I think my father, has some kind of opinion on what kind of tefillin I should get. So of course I'm a little shy to talk to parents because they don't usually like me that much. I'm thinking, I'm gonna get a heart. Oh, which reminds me. Okay, well, I'll tell you that later. Anyway, remind me about parents. So anyway, so he says. So I'm thinking like I don't really want to talk to his father because I don't need anybody's opinion. I know get tefillin. On the other hand, maybe he has a specific custom how he does and he wants his son to do the same way. So he said, all right, let's call him. So he called his father, and we're talking about. He said he doesn't want to have Sfard tefillin, like Ashkenaz. We use Arizal, whatever. And I'm like, he says. So I said, I'm thinking we're going to do Chabad does the Arizal and usually, and he says, yeah, that's probably the one you should do because that's where I got my tefillin. I'm like, oh, it's good. So he says, yeah, and he tells me the whole story. He actually met his wife at not in Massachusetts, a different state. He met his wife there at some Chabad function, and so I'm like, okay. And then they moved from that city to another city, and they were connected to Chabad, and they moved to a different state. Also in Chabad, it's like, oh, right, so this is a whole Chabad family. For whatever reason, his son didn't get a pair of tefillin, but his father was so on board that, it was amazing, it was beautiful. And then to see this whole connection. And not only that, but then after that, we called his mother, whatever, I think his mother called him, whatever, we were speaking to his mother. Anyway, and so she's talking about her oldest son doesn't have a pair of tefillin, and he's in school somewhere else. So after the phone call, and she says, he's a little different, he's not so into it, I said, don't worry about it, I'm going to call the shliach and just say, I'm going to tell him the truth. Not the whole truth, but the truth. I'm going to say that, tell this kid that his brother is in the Chabad house by me. I called you to tell him about it. And leave the mother out of it. So there's no untruth going on over here. You don't have to reveal everything. And so I started telling this shliach that, I got to tell you this story about this kid that was in Israel. He said, and he cuts me off. He says, what do you mean? I listened to the Pos-cast. I know that part of the story. So there's somebody listening. So that was pretty amazing. So the other alumni story was this kid that graduated a solid 20 years ago, I believe.
It's a long time ago. I don't think I was out of diapers at that point. I was probably still in the pull-ups.
Thanks for sharing. So
I was like 3 years old 20 years ago.
He sends me a photo, a screenshot of his conversation with his mother. And his mother and father are here in Boston visiting some cousins or something. And they're talking about where he used to live. He used to live on Beacon Street, like 500 something Beacon Street or 800 something Beacon Street, whatever it was. And he says to his parents, like, go visit the Chabad house. They renovated, go see what it's like. And so then 5 minutes later, a screenshot of a picture of the front door of the Chabad house. But they didn't go in. So he calls me, the kid calls me, and I say to him, well, he's not a kid anymore. He calls me and says, oh, my parents are on Boston. He says, well, I'm actually on campus now, so even if they went in, they wouldn't be able to meet me. I say, fine. About a half an hour later, this couple walks by, this older couple, and I look at them and my mind, and and they said, oh, we're Richard's parents. And I said, yeah, I know. And I was, I'm not surprised. I just paused because we call him Aryeh. That's his Hebrew name. They're still calling him Richard. So I said, I knew that. I just had to translate from Aryeh to Richard, and they put it in. So that was a wonderful, very nice meeting up with them. And they remembered that I had flown to his wedding in Washington, which I wouldn't miss. He was very close to us and still is. So that was a beautiful thing. So they were happy parents. And somebody else was standing there. I was talking to a student. And they start going on and saying like, oh, that he was very close with the rabbi and da-da-da. And there was no negative feeling. Because I think when he first kind of, I think with time, here is the key. Key is this. Anybody out there who's listening to this, you included, If your parents have any issue with becoming more observant, more Shomer Torah mitzvahs, there's one solution to the whole thing. Get married and bring home grandchildren. Once they see the family and they see the grandchildren, no more complaints. Because they'll see the beautiful children, K'nai, and a lot of them, God willing, then everything is fine. And they see, they think what's going to happen. He's not going to have a job. He's not going to this, not that. Once they see that things are flowing well and everything is going on, everything works out. So that was what's going on.
So what's the? I mean, what are some like Chabad things for Rosh Hashanah? I know that like Chabad doesn't do the bread tossing, right? For Tashlich on Sunday, right? So that's you just kind of go and you look at the water and you read the words, and then that's kind of it. But what else is there? Is there anything from the Rebbe that the Rebbe used to like to do, or?
A second. There is an issue with the bread because you're not supposed to feed wild animals on Shabbos and Yom Tov, whatever. So we don't do that. But it's interesting that you mentioned that. People think that this is all planned. We planned nothing. I was like running crazy today, and it was even late for an appointment, and then the computer didn't work. But during our, we have this Thursday night thing where the campus shluchim are learn the weekly sikha of the Rebbe that everybody's learning, and then there's a farbrengen afterwards. And so the guy, there's like one nudnik who like organizes the farbrengen, keeps it going and the whole thing and sends the messages and all that. He says to me, could you come on tonight by the farbrengen and talk about what it's like being by the Rebbe for Rosh Hashanah?
Or are you the old man of the group?
What did you say?
Are you the old man of the group?
What, I can't hear you? I'm older than them. And so I immediately started thinking about that, because I don't think about this usually, but I'm thinking, because like they're colleagues, we talk about the Rebbe and talk about, different things. And when that happens, like, it like sort of brings that into focus. Like, yeah, there are guys there that weren't never there. And to me, that's like, because to me, the time span since I was by the Rebbe until today, I don't think about it. I just don't think about it. It's like yesterday. It's like, because it's so vivid. And when I moved to Boston, so I wasn't, we moved here in 1985. So, there was 5 years, 5, 7, 8, 9 years that we weren't in 77 for Rosh Hashanah anyway. So then, it became a memory from the first year we were here. So every year that I'm here, it's a memory. But if it's a vivid memory, time doesn't matter how much time passes. But when somebody says something like that, I realize like, oh my golly, these are people that never were never there, never saw it. So it's all what they hear, what they read about, it's all they know about it. And so so I was sharing with them, what it was like, and after I did that, it didn't get away from me. And now I'm thinking about it more and more. Like I'm missing it. Now I'm thinking about, wow, it has been a long time, and how precious it was, all that kind of stuff, all that emotional stuff, which I try to avoid because I got to focus on what I'm doing, not getting emotional and feeling, all this stuff that goes on. But so to answer your question now, Rosh Hashanah by the Rebbe, or in general, all the holidays of Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchas Torah, by the Rebbe was like a different level. It was different. There's Rosh Hashanah by the Rebbe. There's Yom Kippur by the Rebbe. Sukkot, each one of them had that unique quality of what the Rebbe was doing at that time. So they want to talk specifically about blowing the shofar. Now, Rosh Hashanah by the Rebbe starts before Rosh Hashanah because everybody would give in a note. I don't know if you put an envelope, maybe not. Would give it to the Rebbe. The Rebbe would stand by his door of his room, and you can see these videos, and people would walk by and give the Rebbe a note, and he would like take it, put it into his hand, and then when it was full, he'd put it down. He'd step into his office, put it down on the table or something, and it's each one he would say, give everybody a little bracha, and of course make eye contact. I don't know if I mentioned that, but whenever the Rebbe gave something or took something from people, he always made eye contact. So it would be literally looking, he wouldn't be taking it from the hand and giving that little bracha. So that was Erev Rosh Hashanah. And then we would all go to the Oyel, which was then the Oyel of the previous Rebbe, and the Rebbe himself would go then as well. And that was before Rosh Hashanah even started. So Erev Rosh Hashanah was already a busy Rebbe day. And then the blowing of the shofar was one of those events that nothing comparable ever happened during the year. What I mean to say is that in general, the Rebbe did things very modestly. Like when he davened. When he davened, he stood and he davened. There was no motions. Like, these times, none of that. There was nothing like that. Literally would sit and daven, and even the shaking was very, very slight, if at all. Like even by the Amidah, I don't believe the Rebbe would move during the Amidah. He was pretty much focused on, he had the sitter in front of him on his stender, on his lectern, and he davened. And there was no external anything going on. When it came Rosh Hashanah, we saw this external, and throughout the other holidays we'll talk about in the upcoming weeks, there was this expression of emotion. So when it came to blowing the shofar, there was like this something like we could see something was going on. We just can figure, we have stories of great tzaddikim figuring things out or setting things up, arranging things in heaven, and that seems to be what was going on. And that's why people would want to go to 7-7, not just to hear the Rebbe blow the shofar, which he blew the shofar, which is alone fantastic, but blowing the shofar is blowing the shofar. So there's little nuances, how long, how loud, but it was a preparation for the blowing the shofar, because the Rebbe would take those notes that were given to him before Rosh Hashanah, and I guess the people that helped him out as assistants would take them out of the envelopes, and if somebody put money in, they'd have to separate the money, and get these brown wrapping paper, and would put them in and bundle them up and tie them up with rope. So you had like a package like that and like there was 3, 4, 5 of them. When the Rebbe would come out for davening, there's two Gabbayim, Rabbi Klein and Rabbi Groner, blessed memory, would carry them down and put them in a table near the Rebbe where he davened. And then when the Rebbe got the Aliyah to the Torah, which is Maftir, they would follow with those packages, and after the Torah reading and the Haftarah, then get ready for blowing the shofar. So they would put the packages on the bima, and the Rebbe would take his talis and put it over all of them, and would like lean down on the bima and would do some kind of davening. I never heard anything. You see the people on the bima would try to like listen. What is the Rebbe saying? Or sometimes it was crying. It was something was going on there, and you knew that your name was in that package that the Rebbe's talis was covering. It's just an incredible thing. Like we know that this is amazing. We don't describe what happened. I don't know what happened. The Rebbe was davening. And then he would pull back his talis, and he would start saying Lamanat, say the psalm that you say 7 times, and then he would put his talis down and say the psalm. Then he would pick it up again, complete the 7th psalm, lead us in the 7 verses that come, or 8 verses that come before the blowing of the shofar, and then blow the shofar. And even that, there was different shofars, and there was a sort of some kind of inherited cloth that they would cover them with. There's all kinds of different stuff, which shofar did he use and all that. But that was just an incredible uplifting spirit, when you can feel and see the spiritual element that's going on by the Rebbe, which is very unique. And that was, I think every Lubavitcher who was ever there, before they blow shofar, they pause for a moment and they imagine like they're standing there and try to channel that energy, that as a shliach of the Rebbe, trying to like, okay, we don't know what you were doing there, but we're doing what you told us to do. And gather up all the little sparks that we're elevating them, bring them up to Shemayim and put them into place to get us a good new year for everybody. Then there's another thing, which is that after the one who blows the shofar, he walks back to his place in front of the shul, and then he turns around and faces everybody, like makes like a circle. And the Rebbe would do that. He would go back to his beam all the way in the front, his place that he had in the front, and he would pull back his towel like this, and like he would go make a complete 360-degree circle. As after everybody's at the bima, we read the Torah to be close to the Rebbe when he's blowing the shofar. Then they rush back to the front to be able to see the Rebbe turning around, and that it's like a face. It's like it's an expression of overwhelming love. So no, these are just little, not little, but these are some of the things that happen in Rosh Hashanah. Then, of course, the second day of Rosh Hashanah was the Fabrengen, and then Kosher Brach afterwards, Rebbe distribute the wine. So this is something that we talk about spirituality and something more than just doing it, even though we know it's a mitzvah and we study all the reasons for blowing the shofar, but like to be uplifted, and that was really the experience of being with the Rebbe at blowing the shofar. It was like an uplifted experience. So yeah, that's that.
I can only imagine. It sounds like an incredibly powerful experience.
Yeah, and people crowding around the bima. They get there early in the morning and they be jammed in. It was a whole thing, but yeah, and to imagine now, how many Kanai Nahara, like in front of 770, like in the service road in front of 770, they put up this long tent, like about 100 feet long, and it covers the whole. There's no cars there. That's like for the overflow crowd. And this year, I understand they put up not a tent cover, but glass walls. And people daven there and learn there. That's how many people can I know that come to 770 for even today for Tishrei, for the holidays, to be near the Rebbe's place. So they have this overflow crowd thing. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So I think, I think it's important for everybody to try to get a little bit deeper into Rosh Hashanah. Yes, the meal is important and whatever else you're doing, but the shofar blowing, the mitzvahs, the davening, focus a little bit on the davening itself. You say the words a little bit slower than, and focus a little bit and try to, get into the mood of it. And it'll be a powerful and successful Rosh Hashanah.
Amen. I think that's all the time we have for episode 21 of the Pos-cast. Thank you for joining us. Have a happy and sweet New Year. Gemar Chasima Tova. Everyone, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
And next year.
Aha.